So in this lesson, we're going to go through how you can create an equation for a perpendicular bisector. So if you recall, a perpendicular bisector does two things to a given line segment. So the first thing it does is it cuts the segment into two congruent pieces at its midpoint. That's the bisector part. It also forms a right angle because we have perpendicular lines. Now, the past couple of lessons, we have been using both midpoint and perpendicular lines, and so this lesson is really going to be combining what we've been doing. So, if I'm given 2 points, right, A and B, and I want to create the equation of the perpendicular bisector of the segment of these 2 points, you need to know the midpoint and the slope, right, both our original slope and the slope that will be perpendicular. So the first thing we do is we figure out the midpoint. So the midpoint is we first do our x's, add them together, divide by 2, and the same thing with the y's. And you'll get your midpoint is at 3, 0. And now we also want to look for the slope. So change in y's over change in x's. So the slope is 1. So now the slope that would be perpendicular to AB. So 1 is our original slope. The slope of the perpendicular would be the reciprocal and the opposite, which simplifies an opposite sign, which simplifies to -1. So our equation of the perpendicular bisector will be y is equal to negative x plus b, and we know that it has to go through the midpoint, which is 3, 0. So we will use that to figure out what b needs to be. And then we'll figure out that b is 3. So then we end up with y is equal to negative x plus 3. And we can graph these just to look. So we're at 5, 2, and 1, -2. So this is our original segment, AB. And now we're saying that our perpendicular bisector is this line. Y is equal to negative x plus 3. So again, you find the midpoint, find the original slope, your perpendicular slope, and then you use the same tricks we've been doing the past couple of days to determine what that equation of a line should be. So let's do a couple more practice. We'll do a couple of the delta math and then a couple of the region practice. So find the equation for the perpendicular bisector. So that tells me 2 things. I need both the midpoint and the perpendicular slope of the line segments whose endpoints are 9, -7, and -1, -3. So first let's find the midpoint. So 9 plus -1 divided by 2, -7 plus -3 divided by 2. So that's going to simplify to 4, -5. So my line has to go through that point. And now if I want the slope, change in y over change in x. So that gives me -10 over -10, which gives me 1. So the perpendicular slope will be -1. Actually, I lied. Because if we do -3 plus 7, -3, because 2 negatives make a positive, so that gives me 4 over -10, which will simplify to -2 over 5. So then my slope that is perpendicular will be 5 over 2. So now we want y equals mx plus b. Well, I know that m must be 5 over 2, but I don't know what b is, but I do know that it needs to go through this point. So -5 is equal to 5 over 2 times 4 plus b. Negative 5 is equal to 10 plus b. B is equal to negative 15. So therefore, my equation of the line will be y is equal to 5 over 2x minus 15. So then the rest of them are the same process. Again, find the midpoint, find the slope, perpendicular slope, plug it in to find your intercept, and then you have your equation. QR code is here for the solutions. I want to look at some of the regions questions before we look at your homework. So when it comes to the regions questions, sometimes they're going to be very straightforward. Sometimes they're going to have to do a couple of steps in between. So the first one, what is an equation of the perpendicular bisector of the line segment shown in the diagram below? So here the difference is that they're not telling you what the points are. You have to read the graph. So we have 2, negative 4 here. We have negative 2, positive 4 here. So we need to have a midpoint and we need to have the slopes. So if we do the midpoint, so negative 2 plus 2 is going to be 0. 4 plus negative 4 is going to be 0. So our midpoint is actually at 0, 0. And the slope, because we're going from 4 to negative, we're going from 4 to negative 4. So it's 8 over negative 4. So it's a slope of negative 2. So our perpendicular slope will be 1/2. So we would have 1/2 x. So this is the equation. So now if we look, it doesn't have anything. So now you kind of have to look at the options. So you could start plugging in values, or you're going to have to look and see how you can sort of change this to look like what they have, right? If I multiply both sides by 2, I get rid of the 1/2, and then I move the x over to get 0 on this side to get your final answer. The equations of the endpoints of AB are 0, 0, and 0, 6. The equation of the perpendicular bisector of AB is what? So 0, 0 to 0, 6. Midpoint is going to be 0, 3. And if we look here, 6 minus 0. So if you were going to plot these points, it's at 0, 0, and then 0, 6. This is actually a vertical line. So the slope is undefined. It needs to go through 0, 3. So it has to be where y is equal to 3. Perpendicular bisector. So again, first start with your midpoint. 8 plus 0 divided by 2 is 4. 2 plus 6 is 8 divided by 2 is 4. Slope, 6 minus 2 is 4 over negative 8, which is negative 1/2. So the slope perpendicular is going to be positive 2. So we have y equals 2x plus b. And we know it has to go through 4, 4. B will end up being negative 4. So our answer should be number 1. Line segment NY has endpoints N, negative 11, 5, and Y, 5, negative 7. What is the equation of the perpendicular bisector? So first midpoint. So we're doing negative 11 plus 5, which is negative 6, divided by 2, which is negative 3. 5 plus negative 7 is negative 2, divided by 2 is negative 1. Our slope. So we're doing negative 7 minus 5, and 5 minus negative 11. So it's negative 12 over 16. which simplifies to -3/4. So the slope perpendicular is equal to 4/3. So we can eliminate anything that does not have that slope. So if we look, so your answer should be number 1, because you see the +1 and the +3, they assign to the opposite, but that is showing that it goes to the point -3, -1. So let's start with midpoint. So -5 plus 7 is 2, divided by 2 is 1. 1 plus -9 is -8, divided by 2 is -4. The slope, -9 minus 1 is -10. 7 minus -5 is +12, which simplifies to -5/6. The slope perpendicular is 6/5. Eliminate anything that doesn't have 6/5. And we look for opposite signs in point slope and read 4. So here, this tells me that the y-intercept of this line is 0, 4, and we're then going to -4, 6. So the midpoint will be -2, 5. The slope, 6 minus 4 is 2, -4, -1/2. So we're looking for +2. So y equals 2x plus b. 5 equals 2 times -2 plus b. 5 is equal to -4 plus b. B is equal to 9. Okay, and now homework is again more of the same. If you look back through the examples we've done, you should be able to do them, and the answer key is posted through the QR code.